Dudes, it's time to art out. Today we're going to talk about making art with templates. There's a long history of this. The caveman liked to do it. Look at all those hands overlapped on each other. In the 70s and 80s, airbrush artists liked to do this with torn paper mountains. But really, paper, even though I used a lot of it, was not strong enough for me. So I got turned on to these stainless steel sculpting scrapers is what they're called. They come in a variety of shapes and sizes. Heck, I'm even using some spatulas here. And I found that if you actually overlap them in interesting ways, you can get some really complex shapes. You could use them reductively and take an eraser and go around the outer edges of them. But even though they made so many different shapes, I still was not finding the most useful ones that I needed, and I had to have so many of them. So I thought I'd make my own. These are made out of plastic, and they have a lot of the curves after studying faces that I thought would be useful. They're neat shapes in their own right, but I'm not interested in them as a stencil. I want to use the outer edges of these things. So let's begin. Using a makeup brush and some General's graphite powder, I start going in with a brush and looking at my basic forms after looking at reference. Little eye socket in there. You can kind of just see I'm just having fun with this. I'm doing some directional mark making. Bit of a smaller brush to move some graphite around a little bit more precisely, but I'm being pretty loose at this point. Shake the graphite off, and now we're digging back in. Here goes the kneaded eraser for the first time, and I'm not using the templates. I'm just going around it with the kneaded eraser to try to clarify where the forms are going to be. I get out the brush again, going for another level. The big brush comes out. Now we're using the template for the first time. Look at the edges of the chin, the intersections of the mouth there, the bottom lip, cutting out that nose. Look at that. Oh man, I was really happy with that. This is the first time I'm using this thing, so I really don't know what's going to happen here. But I found I could get a lot of detail, and I haven't drawn a single line yet. This has all been done with using nothing but the brushes and the graphite and these templates. Cutting around the inside of the eye there, I thought, well, that was pretty cool. Look how I got that little eyelid to kind of pop. Little nook of the mouth there. Now we got a pencil out for the first time, and I'm trying to establish something a little bit more on with my reference, I think, at this point. And then I'll go back in with the templates, but I just wanted to scribble in some shadow forms and some highlight forms here. Starts defining it out a little bit more and adding a neat look where it's a combination of soft stuff and line work. I'm using a 2H and a 2B pencil for the majority of this. Going in with a 2B here and reestablishing some things. Some, expressive mark making. Right here we're actually using medical grade Q-tips, or I guess what you'd get your tonsils tested with, I suppose. I don't really know. But those are super handy because they can really smudge that graphite in such a nice way. I made 3 different templates after studying the human face and tried to pull a lot of curves that I thought were useful. I really like the way the templates kind of define the edge of the hair there. I'm going with a kneaded eraser at this point, and I'm using it in that reductive way we talked about where I'm pulling out highlights and stuff. It's really a dance. I'm going back and forth. There's another type of eraser. I'll switch back to the pencil for a second, switch back to the powdered graphite for a second. The kneaded eraser, you can actually get really accurate with it if you pinch it between your fingers, but also if you flatten it out and just kind of press it down on the graphite, it'll lift up almost like a sponge would, I suppose. More nooks and crannies. A little more definition on the hair. She's got a big gauged earring. Wanted to get that in there. And I'm just sort of tightening things up now with the pencil. Just getting that a little bit of extra snap in it. So I want it to be a combination of lost and found edges. And you can see, especially on the back side of the hair there, how I was really successful in kind of getting those cool shapes with the stencils. Back to a paper template though, because I just wanted a simple pattern. So I made a woodblock print or a linoleum print and stamped it in gold ink. Little gold circle around the earring there. Just some embellishing. So why bother using templates at all? Well, for me, using templates forces you to be more interpretive in your work because you're not going to find the exact shape that you need, so you have to kind of make it up. And then after that, we're actually going to go in with just some white FW acrylic ink. And we're going to cut out some of the negative shapes and build up a little bit of highlighting on the face. Always finding those nooks and crannies. You know, I like to find those nooks and crannies. Little spots of dark, little spots of light that really give your piece a pop. And that's all she wrote, folks. This is our first experiment with these. Eventually, I'd love to have these templates made in stainless steel because they're much more flexible and much more useful. But I'm actually pretty stoked with how many curves I was able to get out of 3 templates as opposed to an entire box full of the other ones. So I'd like to make a couple more forms because I was missing a few curves I could have really used, but I'm pretty excited about where this might go. All right, guys, I really appreciate you watching, and keep making art. Bye.